I am so happy to have you on the phone, Kama. We
I'm
have
so glad
never
to be
met.
here.
We've talked, we've emailed back and forth, and I know Stephen told me about you years ago,
Yes.
and I know you were planning to come out and do some works here, but you have quite an interesting background, and I'm so looking forward to talking to you. For people, you have friends here on Maui already, right?
Yes, I do, and actually Maui has always been home to me.
Well,
I always say that, and when people ask me where I'm from, I have such a hard time answering it because I know my soul is so deeply rooted in Maui.
Well, you were born where?
So I was actually born in Marin County. It's actually where I am right now. It's funny, I'm not here much, but I'm visiting family, and we circuited between Maui and Mexico. So,
And there's maybe people who don't know who I'm talking. This is Kama Hagar. Kama Hagar is Sammy Hagar's daughter, and she spent quite a bit of time when Sammy had a house out in Hawaiian, right?
yes, exactly. And to be honest, about my family wanted to have me there. They had a whole home birth process they were going through. They wanted to. My mom was actually taking Lamaze classes up in Makawao, and this was the whole vision. And then there was actually complication in the pregnancy, and I ended up being born in California. So it almost happened. It's like my almost story. And then I truly believe that since then, in such a young age, spending so much time there, it was just where I connected the most deeply.
So how old were you when you first came to Maui?
Oh my gosh, an infant. So I know that as soon as I was born, my parents came back to Maui pretty soon after, and just spent a lot of time there because it was between my parents, their first kid. I have two older brothers, but half-brothers, and so my mom wanted to kind of do this experience in Maui, and yeah, so I spent a lot of my time there, and my earliest memories are actually just running barefoot through the jungle and picking fruit and just listening to the ocean. And we lived really out there, as you know, Wailo, being on the cliff and really isolated, and that was my playground, and that's where I learned so much.
My first 3 years here on Maui, we're out in Huelo at down the Door of Faith Road, and I think Sammy and his wife and you were just the road before that down there, and it is the jungle.
Yes.
It is really. I mean, it's it's almost like you're on a different planet. I swear, I used to drive into town every day and back, and it's like you go into another world out there because it is so different out there.
It really is, and I actually had no idea that you were just a street away from us.
Yeah.
This is so exciting.
Yeah. And that bay is so magical. Sometimes the whales would come in there, and
yes.
it was just so beautiful to look down on that beautiful bay there.
Yes,
Yeah.
It is probably the most magical place on this planet. I truly believe that, and I've traveled a lot, and I just keep coming back to that place. That is home. That is I just think it's the most magical place. There's ever-changing. I just feel like you can sit there and watch the clouds come in, and, of course, it's raining, it's windy, and then it's perfect rainbows and clear, and there's just such an energy there. And, of course, I always talk on this esoteric level about it, but I have friends who've been there who aren't, into the things I am, or not into, they're not talking like I am, and they're there feeling the same stuff I'm feeling, and they don't even know how to put it into words. It's just incredible.
So it's interesting because, I grew up pretty much with rock and roll. I started with the musical instrument store when I was about 18 years old, and I was in radio there at K-Rock in Los Angeles when I was in my 20s, but I do understand the difference between the spiritual aspect and the rock and roll, but you had that so clearly because you're rock and roll parents and you had the beauty of Maui, but did you ever go on the road with your dad, or was that kept separate?
Oh, no, yes. I was 100%. My parents even talk about how when I was born, they just slung me into like a baby sling and just kept living the life they were already living. Like, I did not change the game.
Wow.
So, yeah, no, I, from a young age, toured. That's why, truly, it's funny for me to even have a place that feels like home, because I really didn't connect to places like home. I love to be on the go, and that's because at such a young age I was on the go. Every single summer we were gone from the day I was out of school, or sometimes before. My parents did not hesitate to take me out and bring me places, and I loved it. I was actually, actually I should say they're fortunate that I was so flexible. I loved it so much. My sister, on the other hand, was like, let me be with my friends. Let me go to school.
You know what? I really believe, and I really firmly believe, that travel is an education in itself, and that seeing different places, I think it's so good for families and for children. You indeed, like you said, you have to be flexible. But
Definitely.
my gosh, things you see in different, you break down a lot of the cultural barriers when you're traveling the world. And I mean, you weren't seeing it in the typical way, of course.
No.
You were seeing it a little differently than most people would see it. And you were hitting a lot of towns, I'm sure. But you did travel the world. You went to Europe for a while too, right?
Yeah, so I feel like the first time I went to Europe, I was probably 8 or 9. My dad did tour primarily the U.S., so it's funny, I actually always say my second or third home is the Midwest. I feel like I spent so many summers in the Midwest, but we did end up going to Europe when I was probably 7 or 8, and then I went a few more times, and oh my gosh, that's also a whole, I feel like I've learned just as much as I have in Italy as I have in Iowa, and I truly believe that. I feel like there's so much in every place, and each place has its own character, and I used to love looking at the style, just what people would wear, because I used to be in fashion, and I was so inspired by my travels. It totally sculpted everything I do today.
Well, and were you, was your mother into yoga? I mean, obviously she was definitely into traveling and was very open-minded. You had a passion for healing and beauty and yoga as well, right?
Yes, yeah. So my mom, a little bit. So I have to say my mom probably was my first portal in terms of the yoga, the meditation, the practices. She actually always dabbled a little. She'd always read on past lives. And she had this kind of like private world of things, but she's not that kind of person. When you meet her, she's logical, practical, straight shooter. Like, it is so funny, but she really does get into these concepts. And then my dad, on the other hand, is definitely the more creative, whimsical, open-minded, would talk astrology. That was my second language growing up.
Oh, interesting.
Was astrology. And you would think he would be the one that was practicing, but he wasn't. So it's really funny. They both totally had these practices in different ways, and I was intrigued by it all. I was actually more interested in like the other side. I was like, what? I was always doing seances when I was a kid and crazy stuff like that. And actually, our house out in Halo had some crazy stuff happening there too. So I loved going in the spirit realm, if you will. And then furthering down into my life, I actually, as I said, I was in fashion before I was in beauty, and I burnt out so hard in this industry because I think, you've heard, it's the second, fashion at least, is the second most detrimental industry to the planet from oil. So it's just so many things, like women's body issues, slave labor, pollution, and I was just so exhausted, and I wanted to do better. I was like, how can I start a line that doesn't do this? And I,
which is challenging.
By the end of it, I became so uninspired, and I hope someone else can do it. It wasn't me. But what I did end up finding was, these practices. So I started meditating, and I started really working with sustainability, and I started doing yoga, and I just ended up doing this for myself and became Reiki certified, and then all of these things. I actually studied Hawaiian Healing, and I just realized, okay, this is actually for me, but I can give this to so many people. So I started working with people, and it's been the most fluid, amazing, inspirational path I've ever taken, and it was a total accident.
And there's been amazing things that Sammy Hagar has done with the nonprofits, and a lot of people don't hear about that. Some people do, but my gosh, he did some amazing projects, the Backpack Project and others. Really, there's been so much given back by the community, which does show his altruistic nature, of course, that people may not be aware from his rather rock and roll nature, which people don't necessarily think of as altruistic, right?
Not generally, no. Yeah, no, and that has been something that at a young age, I think I just watched, and I didn't really have an opinion I was really young, I didn't, I was like, this is just what it is, you just give, and that was just innate, and so that was always in my background, just wanting to do something that had an impact, because, to be honest, I think that's the only way.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't understand how to not give back, or how to not do something that's going to benefit something higher. And I always say, even I have a natural skincare line. That's the other thing I do, and it's all 100% recycled packaging, and I give back too. And it's glass bottles. Like, I can't even imagine creating another product on this planet that doesn't serve. So that's how I feel. So important to me.
And I was talking to the producer of this new film we're going to air, that's going to air here on Maui, the Ram Dass film. And we were talking about the difference between the 60s and kind of when all that started way back there in the New Age versus what's going on now. Yeah. And he said just kind of reflected exactly what you just said, that there's amazing hope in the, because I was wondering, of all those dreams back there that a lot of the people, the starting of the age of Aquarius and what happened to those dreams, he said, I can't believe how many millennials are out there who are just naturally giving back, that are just naturally thinking of serving and are so passionate about it.
Yes.
And a lot of the people in the 60s really were kind of escaping. It was the tune in, turn out, right?
Yes.
So there was this whole era of getting away or running away from society. And now there's all this, people like you and others that are doing really powerful things to try to help save the world, right?
Yes, well, yes, exactly, and that's so well said. I heard a teacher, a Kundalini teacher actually in Los Angeles that I used to practice with, and she had said something exactly like that it used to be drop out was the mentality, and now it's drop in. And it's so much about just really fixing any damage that has been done and just getting in it, I guess, like really in all ways, going through whatever you're going through, healing your stuff, healing the planet, and so that's definitely the positive side of the millennial generation. We have other things to work out, but that's the best. I
agree. Now, let's go into the era of Cabo Wabo and that whole thing. Of course, I know there is still Stinger's Restaurant here on Maui at the airport, right?
Yeah, so the Sammy's Beach Bar and Grill is on Maui still, and that's actually, there are a few other ones scattered around the U.S., and those are all the same kind of things where the profits go to feed kids and really, really awesome stuff like that. So that was actually, I might be wrong. I should ask my dad before I say stuff like this, but I do believe that was the first Sammy's Beach Bar and Grill ever to open. So it's really awesome. And and then of course there's Cabo Wabo stuff. So the original one being in Cabo. And he just goes. I don't know really how he does it, honestly.
You moved down to Cabo Wabo, right? You moved down to Cabo.
We moved exactly in 4th grade. I spent my entire school year there, and we've gone back and forth forever, my whole childhood. But that I actually got dropped off in a fully Spanish-speaking school, and my parents were like, good luck. And that was the absolute, that's talk about culture and travel and learning. Then I was not happy. Now I am so grateful, because not only was I totally learning a completely different language and struggling through it, but I was also just learning a whole new culture, and I was in the minority. And I think it was the most important thing that's ever happened to me. So I always say, too, and I hope I can do that for my kids also, just bring them somewhere new and you toss them in.
Yes. And you didn't speak the language when you started, but you learned the language, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
You learned how to speak Spanish probably pretty quickly, right?
That's the way to do it, yes. So I'd taken some Spanish lessons as a kid with some friends and stuff my parents signed me up for, but no, I was learning Spanish and science and all these things in Spanish.
Wow.
So, I'm sorry, not Spanish. Math, science, the whole nine. And it's also, they teach things differently. Like math is taught differently. They have just little things that, it's so hard to explain, but like long division, they have a whole different formula for how to break things down. So when I came back to the U.S., not only had I learned it in Spanish, but I had learned different. It was crazy. But you learn. These little things that every culture, and it also shows a lot about just how people think. Really incredible.
Was it hard integrating in because you were a minority, and obviously the kids there must have found out pretty quickly that you're from a famous father, and they probably knew about Cabo Wabo, and the bar down there is famous around the world, right?
Yeah.
It built up a whole culture of people that actually came down to it, right?
Definitely. I mean, Cabo has boomed ever since, and yes, it was tough. I mean, there's no skirting around it. It was definitely hard. I didn't feel definitely more bullied than I'd ever been.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they really they weren't afraid to let me know. And I mean, it's tough and it's crazy. I mean, that still, of course, that happens in the U.S. That happens everywhere, and for all kinds of reasons. And I was just lucky enough when I grew up mostly in Northern California to be with a community of kids that had all grown up together, and there wasn't much of that. So having that experience, though it was horrible, it was so important to know, like, kids go through this every day.
Yeah.
And I'm so passionate about working with kids, too, as is my dad. That's, like, a huge theme in our family. It's like, the kids.
Did you learn how to stand up for yourself? I mean, it must have been hard being a girl and being in Mexico and not having any friends at all.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had one really good friend. Funny enough, she's my dad's partner in Cabo Wabo, his daughter. So she had grown up there, and she was actually half American, and she kind of took me under her wing, thank God. But no, it was hard, and I actually didn't learn to stand up for myself. It's just so sad. I can't even say I did until, oh my gosh, college.
Wow.
I think that became my first personal practice. A lot of that came from just confidence. I was really shy growing up, and people are always shocked by that, too, because everyone thinks I'm an extrovert, and I'm a total introvert, but I fooled everyone. I've just worked really hard on confidence, and that was actually my gateway into self-development and improvement and meditation and spirituality, if you will, because all I wanted to do was be confident. And I started with positive affirmations. And
wow, people don't know it, but I'm extremely shy. I was always very shy as a kid. And I went to Beverly Hills schools, and I never really fit in. And I really felt like an outsider always. And it's amazing how you learn techniques to try to cover it up, because you don't want people to know that,
100%.
And that's one of the reasons I got into radio, because I could talk
what
behind a
helped
microphone where I didn't have to be out in public, and I could say and talk, but it's more introverted rather than extroverted, right? And you learn over time, but I don't know if it really ever. You learn how to deal with it, and like you say, affirmations are wonderful, meditation is wonderful, but part of me would much rather be meditating and looking inside than doing any of the other stuff. But I have a very hard time at parties or going out and doing stuff like that.
I'm the same way. I'm still not. That's not my scene.
Yeah, and I totally get that. And people don't expect that at all from you, because they assume you're a certain way because of who you are, etc. Yes. But it is always there, and the meditation definitely helps, like I say, and the affirmations definitely do. So you were in Mexico for how long?
Yeah, so no, I totally get all those. I feel the exact same way, and I am actually. It's like you said, it's still practice. And for Mexico, we were there for a whole year. It was actually a little longer. I think it was about a year and a few months. But as I said, we would spend chunks of time there. Same with Maui. It was the same way. We would just, whenever there was a free opening in the schedule, my parents would, whether it was summer or, like I said, even in the school year, we would just, did you
always have a backpack or a set suitcase ready to go? I mean, you just
Pretty
said
much.
we were in
Packing.
Mexico for a whole year. It was like I assumed when you were talking a long time would be like 4 or 5 years, but yeah, I mean it's all relative, right? For you, a year was a long time.
Yeah, well, at that time, yeah, definitely. And it was, of course, it was a whole chunk of my elementary school year. So then it seemed like, oh my gosh, I'm missing a whole year of school, or not missing, I was going to school, but you know what I mean. So yeah, but with packing, my bag, I'm always ready to pack. And it's so funny, I'm such a quick packer now. I love to pack too, because I'm just like, it excites me. I'm going somewhere new, and that's how I grew up. So
I never have met anyone who loves to pack. You're the very
I
first
love
person.
it.
You're the you could write a book about that. You could do a video for sure about that, because I don't know anyone
Honestly,
that loves to pack.
I don't either. I always talk about it too. I'm like, oh, I love it. It's so fun. You get to plan it out, and I'm also a planner too. I love to have, but I also see it's a perfect blend. You get to pack for the spontaneous. You also get to pack and plan. It's just, I don't know. I love it.
How do you plan your packing?
So you just got to have an outfit per day. You got to have like at least the same amount of outfit. And again, you can recycle the shirts, whatever, mix and match. But that's how I say it. 9 days, 9 outfits, mix and match. You got to know how many special events or fancy things you're going to need, and that's pretty much it. I mean, to me, it's so easy at this point. So, like I said, innate, I think I really should probably do a little how-to.
You should.
I should.
What's your favorite airline to fly?
Oh my gosh, I'm not even joking. It's Hawaiian Airlines.
Really?
I think it is the moment you get on, it exudes that that Hawaii essence. It's calming. They have the music. They give you the food, no matter what. If economy, doesn't matter. I love it. I think it just has such a good energy.
I have to admit, I do really enjoy it. Now they even have flights from here to Boston, direct flights from Honolulu to Boston.
Wow.
Yeah, they've expanded quite.
Oh,
yeah,
so
quite
good
a few.
to know.
Quite a few places you can now go direct. I did the New York a year ago at the Grammys. I went to the Grammys in New York, and I flew direct back from New York to Honolulu. And that was a long flight. That was like 11 hours, 10 and a half, 11 hours.
Wow.
But it was nice. And I have to admit, having the extra legroom, having the food, the more comfortable seats, although the new planes don't have quite as much room, but still better than some of the other planes. And I do like the service. I have to say that service is better than some of the other airlines like United, et cetera. So,
oh, yes.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I really feel that. I always say it. And it's maybe there's this little bit of bias to it because I know where I'm headed, but I feel so good on that plane.
Yeah, I know. Well, you were going to come out last year and you were going to do a whole retreat, and I know that didn't quite happen.
Yes.
Are you planning to come out to Maui again soon?
Oh my gosh, well, my family's actually been talking about end of July, and now it's kind of back and forth. It's funny, it's either they're like Maui or Oaxaca, and I was like, that is so random, but I love both. I mean, I would love to do both. So we don't know, and I don't know, and I used to go so many times a year, even just on my own when I was out of the house. I remember flying, because I was on a quarter schedule in college, and every quarter I was like, my ticket is bought, I'm off to Maui. So I miss it. It's when my family sold our house there. I actually have not been back since, and that was a dramatic.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my God. Yeah, it was a year. It was a year ago, and I can't believe it because that was my I was there all the time. But it's coming soon. It's just going to have to be a rebirth experience. I'm going to have to reintroduce myself.
Yeah, well, even being on another place on the island is so different because I swear living out and being out in Hawaii is very different than being on the other side of the island or anything. Yeah,
and I love all sides. Yeah. I really do. But I'm just like, what am I going to do with myself?
Well, I don't think you're going to have a problem with that. It's just like you say, it's deciding where it's going to land. I did want to talk to you about one other thing that I was fascinated with that you've studied, which is, and I haven't heard of Molly Helfens. It's the first time I heard about her was from you. But there's an interesting theory on ecosystems that I would love to hear more of your take on.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I talk about this all the time. So Molly Helfens is actually just a really good friend of mine, and she is an ethnobotanist. So she studies the relationship between plants and humans. And so for her thesis, for her master's actually some time ago, she had this entire thing on how humans, like plants and animals, also have an ecosystem. And I loved that idea, and that speaks so true to me about Willow, because I've been, like I said, so connected to that ecosystem. I love the jungle. I love the cliffs. I love the ocean. I love that climate. And there's just something about that just literally lights me up and actually feels so healing and peaceful for me. So I started asking people what their ecosystem was, because I'm like, no-brainer. It's like everyone's probably going to say Hawaii. But it's not like that for everyone. I mean, it is a lot, but people love the desert. People love the mountains. People love, there's been so many specific things. Like when people say beach, I'm like, but what kind of beach? Like, do you like black sand? Do you like rocky beaches, cliffs, Caribbean, you know? And so there's this concept of where you feel the most peace. And when I do a lot of guided meditations, I'm so big on this. I'm like, you need to know your ecosystem. It's your happy place. And
it's interesting. And you know what? I love hiking. Some of my favorite hikes are kind of been pretty overcrowded. But there are certain places I go that I definitely know I resonate with, and certain trees when I go out in nature that speak to me, and I have to stop and just kind of spend a little time and recognize their beauty and their power. I think in every area I go to, one tree's like a master tree that I feel like, wow, you're the one, right? You're the big, and you know, they're finding out. In fact, tonight at the Mac Film Festival, there's going to be a film called The Magic Beneath Us, which is going into how mushrooms do connect, you know, everything, and how they are part of the magic that goes on beneath us. But there is this definite connection between plants, and definite connection that we have between rocks and plants. My gosh, I go out to Sedona and the red rocks there. I mean, I definitely have a couple places going, oh, this is my spot. I feel this is my place I can sit. And it's really good to know what our go-to places are and have that as our... I mean, when I grew up, I sat under a very, very, very tall pine tree up in the Hollywood Hills. And that was my magic place. I could sit there when I was young, and it was a little bench under the tree. And that was where I totally could get inspired. And I had a love affair with this big, big, tall pine tree that spoke to me, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And there's so much, too. I mean, there's a woman here in Marin County, actually, where I am right now, and she does a whole thing on forest bathing, which is that ancient Japanese art. And there's a word in Japanese that I'm spacing on, of course. But, that people are prescribing being out in the forest or being out in nature of any kind to heal. Because oh my gosh, the grounding thing, how we, you know, exchange, the negative ions with the earth, and that helps us balance, and all these amazing things that are science-backed now. So I'm like, find your ecosystem.
Well, you know,
I
think it's really an interesting term. I really hadn't heard of forest bathing, but I certainly, every morning I get up, I go out under my palm trees. There's, 5, 6, 7 trees in my backyard, and I just do my yoga under these trees, and it's so wonderful to be able to yoga under the trees, and I just feel so connected to them as the sun rising, to do the yoga and listen to the birds and you know, make friends with them, and that nature, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that nature is healing.
100%, especially right where you are.
No,
yes, and everywhere, but yes,
it is just as water is. I mean, there's people that go in the water, and that's there. I mean, I'm not a water person like some people. I think your dad was. He was like totally into surfing and the ocean, right? But I've never been that, right? But did you go out in the ocean a lot as well?
Oh, yes. I'm a big ocean girl. So, yeah, that's a huge part of mine. It's funny. I surf a little, not enough to say I'm a surfer, but I do love that feeling of being connected to the ocean. And, of course, your board is your tool, and the ocean is your field. Like, what an amazing concept to me. So I've always been interested in it, and I always, oh my gosh, as soon as if the ocean's warm enough, that's the only thing I'm a little wimpy about the temperatures. But if it's warm enough, I am in immediately. That is my place. I love that. So
when you go to places like Marin, I mean, of course, that's not that far from the ocean there in Marin, and you have those amazing redwood trees.
Yeah. It's funny though, the ocean here, it's like, so that's when I have to cut myself off and be like, I guess you're not a full a full-bred ocean girl because I will not go in the ocean in Marin County.
Well,
too cold.
I know what you're saying. I do know what I do get that. I really
I'm a little particular, or spoiled. I'm probably just spoiled because I can't. Yeah, no, it's definitely a little too cold here. But there are so many people that this region and this ecosystem speaks to them because exactly that. You get the trees and the ocean combined, and that's very unique.
There's a place out there, I don't know if you've been to, but talk about natural and connection with nature and food. Green Gulch Zen Center. Have you ever been to Green Gulch?
No, I'm going to have to write that down.
Oh, you absolutely have to. It's just in it's not quite San Anselmo. It's on that road that connects going over to the beach. And it's all natural. As part of the Zen practice, the people and practitioners there take care of a totally organic garden, and it's huge.
Oh, wow.
There's acres of wonderful organic plants there, and it's literally just, 10, 15 minutes from the ocean. But you go on that winding road over Mount Tamalpais. It goes over the road that goes over Mount Tamalpais that heads towards the ocean there.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, I'm going to look it up. This sounds like it's minutes away from me.
Oh, I think it is. It's called Green Gulch Zen Center.
Oh, wow, amazing. I love it. I find out about these things now. So when I was in high school, I was in fashion. Like, I didn't even, so funny, I did my own things on my own, but I wasn't outwardly seeking. And every time I come back, I'm like, there was so much here.
Well,
I didn't even know.
And you know what? I used to go. You can actually spend a night. They have some beautifully built, very Zen-like rooms, and I think you have to share, bathrooms. But I've spent time there. You can actually spend the night there, and you can sit and do meditation. But you can also have your own practice. You don't have to follow the regular practice. But it's a wonderful retreat place. Pema Chodron wrote one of her books out there and did a retreat out there, and you have to check it out because it is so much in tune with the beauty of nature.
Now.
Yeah,
Number one.
Absolutely a wonderful retreat place that I love. And then, of course, in Sonoma County, I used to go to the Zen Center up there. They've got 80 acres on the top of Sonoma Mountain Road.
See, I haven't done that either. I know of so many now that I've not visited, and every time I'm here, it's all the family, and I'm like, I love you guys. I got to get out, though, and got to get out and meditate.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's nice to always explore when you do that. They might enjoy going with you. I think they have sittings open to the public on Sunday. I'm not sure of the time, but you could go on Sunday, and those are open meditations and talks that are given on Sunday there. So what your plans right now are what?
Yeah, in terms of, let me clarify that question. In terms of just like what's coming up in the next few weeks, or like the big plans.
Well, let's talk about. Obviously, you're still not sure whether you're coming here or going to Mexico on thing. But where would you like to take? You did this work to create this amazing natural makeup.
Yes,
and there's a lot of work that goes into that. Because you have to make sure everything is safe and clear and everything, and then it's really hard getting it out. Are you going to continue working with that process?
Yes, so I'm in the middle of a major rebrand, and so it's an all-natural, organic, handmade skincare line, originally called Kama Botanicals. So like my name, Kama, is spelled based off the Sanskrit word Kama, meaning love. And of course, it's a Hawaiian word, too.
Yeah, it is.
It's amazing. It actually meaning child, right? So I was like, wow, how cute is this? All the things that I love. We have the Sanskrit, we have the Hawaiian. I'm gonna make it my name. I just got really lucky with this name and changed the pronunciation back to the origin. Long story short, I'm actually in the middle of a rebrand to call it Mukama Botanica. And it's going to be the same mission, but more. I'm actually adding eco tools. So things that you would normally use in your skincare routine or your self-care routine. That's actually what it's going to become, is beyond just your getting ready for bed or getting ready for the day. It's actually going to be recycled yoga mats and, of course, reusable water bottles and even recycled meditation cushions and yoga blocks that are made out of 100% recycled cork. Like, no impact is made for your self-care. So the whole mission is selfless self-care. And that's going to be, like I said, anything from skincare to maybe and hopefully eventually the makeup itself, and then just what goes on in your life in order to take care of yourself, your practices.
I got to stop you because you just said something beautiful I actually hadn't heard before, which you obviously could market, and maybe you already have, but selfless self-care is
That's the one. Yep,
that is very powerful.
Thank you. That is the new slogan because I think it's so important. And people always self-care. People are starting to figure it's not selfish anymore. It's so important to fill your own cup. But people are also like, there's still that selfish kind of, people are like, well, what about your family and all these things? And also self-care becomes selfish if it is using products that are, hurting animals or wasteful, or then it is selfish. So really trying to clear that space for what it is supposed to be.
Now, I know you did study some Hawaiian healing. Did you find, did you find some, plants and different things here that you could use in your care?
Yes, and actually my first product was definitely inspired by my studies in Hawaiian healing. I actually started the product before then, but I was always studying my biggest inspiration has always been the healing extracts of Hawaii because they are so powerful, I think. Not only is it so funny, guava is my favorite fruit. It's just my favorite food, honestly, like guava, everything. And that was my first discovery, was taking the guavas from our trees in our backyard, and I would make like DIY facials at home, and my skin was radiant, like no joke, radiant. And I was thinking, how can I make this into something? And only years later was actually, I flew out to Maui once with a one-way ticket, and it was right after graduating from fashion school, and I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I ended up in Maui, of course, and I was just mixing and matching and creating these healing botanical potions in the kitchen. And I had some friends come out and visit me, and they were like, what are you doing? Like, sell this stuff, please. And that was the launch of my skincare line, pretty much right there. So it actually started from curing my own remedies with the stuff in my backyard in Maui. So,
well, that is, and I've never tried guava. I have never tried it. Of course, we know we have guava season. You might not have heard, but there was the story, it was nationwide, about Amanda Eller who got lost in the forest here for 17 days.
I heard, yes.
She said she survived on guava because she was over on that. She went over the, kind of towards the ocean side of when she went through Maka while she got lost. And she said she lived on guava and plants, for 17 days and just the water off there was a waterfall that she was there. So guava's obviously got something, but you have to, didn't you find you have to kind of, there's all those seeds. What do you do with those seeds?
Yeah.
What do you do with those seeds?
Like you just slice, when you're actually, okay, so there are two versions.
Yeah.
The seeds actually themselves are the source of the oil. Similar to most plant-based oils is you extract the oils from the seeds. So all of those seeds create the most luscious, amazing, gently fragrant oil, and it's so good for clearing scars,
really?
For moisturizing, for the hair. It's 5 times richer in vitamin C than in orange.
Really?
Yes, and nobody talks about this. And
No.
same thing with eating them. They're so good for you. And for the face, you just kind of, they don't really stick. You kind of just get the pulp or whatever, the kind of residue, and you just put that all over and let it sit 15 minutes, wash it off. Beautiful.
I will have to try. I have to say, all these years, 30 years here on Maui, and I've never tried it.
You got to do it. It's the stuff.
That's amazing. And then there's some other wonderful plants too. Of course, we all know the ginger. There's some wonderful ginger that was created by, isn't it Paul? What's his name? The hairdresser guy did all that ginger plants. He liked all the gingers for your hair product, right?
Yes,
white
and
ginger
awapui and all that stuff.
Yeah, awapui. Yeah, that's very good, and that does grow out towards Iao as well. Yeah,
definitely. The hair, like you said, it's so great. Like I've done my own do-it-yourself washes, or even you can just take that ginger and just squeeze it into your hands and use the what comes out as a serum for the ends of your hair. It's just amazing. I swear you can live there without touching a beauty store. You just go out in your yard and you just source. It is so incredible, all that you can find out there.
Well, I think that there's definitely people who'd be very interested in finding out more about that because there's the right kind of audience for it here, of course, I think. And I, as much, I have to say when I was out in Huelo, I was much more apt to being open to try to experiment with that than when I've been in town here. There is a difference, and each side of the island is very different as well. What you find up in Iao is different than what you're going to find out in Huelo,
Definitely.
So each section has its own gifts that it brings to that.
Exactly.
And so that would be one of the things you're doing, and it might be interesting to actually keep a journal about how this all evolves. It sounds like you've got travel in your soul, and that's going to always be a part of your life, that you're going to always enjoy traveling, right?
Doing some traveling is always in the books, and actually at the moment, that's what I've been working through. Everything I do at this moment is remote, thank goodness, and I've been able to work and travel together and fuse, and they only help inspire each other. So that's what I've been doing, is working with clients. A lot of them are remote sessions. Thank God for technology. Also in person, but I've been working worldwide with people who just want to have an at-home practice, and they can be home.
For meditation? You're teaching meditation?
Yeah, so I do meditation, Reiki, and then sometimes if it's in person, I can actually incorporate some of the Hawaiian healing practices I learned, actually some of which you can be remote for, and prayers and chants and even just mantra, which is a huge part of my meditation practice. I've been able to incorporate some beautiful Hawaiian mantras into practices for myself and others. So that's one way I kind of fuse that in. And that's a really big mission of mine, is just helping people find their peace, self-love, self-care, all of that stuff, acceptance, huge mission for me, and teaching people that, and as well as, of course, then supplying the self-care tools.
So how do people,
do
people how do people find out and contact you if they're interested in that?
Definitely. So my website for my private sessions is kamahagar.com. My first and last name, KamaHagar.com. And then as far as the skincare, at the moment it's still Kama Botanicals, but it's soon to be Kama Botanica. And that is in the midst of a big, like I said, rebrand, new products coming out this summer. Lots of fun stuff. So really a creative time for me. It's been really, really fun.
I was talking at the beginning of the show before you called in about this app called Insight Timer. Have you found that one yet?
Yes, Insight is awesome.
Yeah.
I also love Unplug. You do have to pay, I think, like $6 a month for it.
Oh, I don't know about that one, but Insight's free.
Not for me. In that case, use Insight 100%. But if you do, I mean, it's so clear. The teachers are awesome. That's actually where I trained. I'm not on the app, but I have beautiful friends who are.
Well, I'm a teacher on Insight Timer, and if you go to...
Oh, you are?
Yeah, and if you go to Insight Timer and you put my name in, you can see about 4 or 5 different chapters that I have from my book, How to Fly with Less Stress, including yoga exercises to do on planes, affirmations, meditations. I have all of those different chapters up there, as well as sections from my book, Peace, Music, and Poems. They now have, I think, about 3 or 4 of my spoken word pieces from that up there. So it's been fun finding out how, for me, what's interesting is in Insight Timer and fascinating is how many people are now meditating. They have that map of the world that shows little dots where everyone.
I love that.
And it's become so big and so huge to think that so many people are into so many different practices. It kind of just blows my mind sometimes to think, oh, there's people all around the world meditating right now, right?
So wonderful. I love that's actually the one thing that Insight Timer does have that I have not seen another app do. And you're right, I love to see that. And it's so inspiring, and you feel connected. And that's the thing, too, that people do meditate to connect, but there is some people worry about that isolating quality of it, but you have this whole map of the world of people who are doing the same thing right then. I love that so much. And I have to look up your stuff. I had no idea, Cindy. That's so awesome.
Oh, yeah, I've been a metaphysical teacher for years, since I was 17, but it's so fun to see so many people finding it. And I hadn't known about that other app, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's called Unplug or Unplugged?
Unplug, just a G
Unplug.
at the end.
Well,
Yeah, and
I'll have to check that out because I
should.
always recommend people doing something like that when they're flying, when they're, that they really can use that time as a retreat time on the plane, To just unplug on the plane is really important instead of just kind of watching the standard movie that you can't really enjoy and see right anyway, right?
Exactly. I feel the same way. It's the best time.
People try to kill time, and that's what they do on a plane. Is designed to distract you enough that you don't realize you really are just flying in this little tin thing 35,000 feet up in the air. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the time is really wasted, and you can take that time and use it to... I've written half of my books kind of in the air flying you started. You know, you can do a lot of work in the air if you want to deposit it.
I hear that all the time. I hear people say they're most inspired up 10,000 feet or
yeah, absolutely you can. We really, if you are going to come up to Maui, you have to let us all know.
I will.
And people can, do you have a blog or anything else that you do, or Facebook or anything that people can check out?
Yeah, so there's a Facebook page for both my skincare line and my personal, so being the skincare line name and my personal name, of course. And then Instagram, same thing. So Instagram and Facebook are my two social platforms that I with the most, but I will say, and blogs, yeah. So I love to write, and I don't do it enough. And I have two blogs. I have one on my site, and then my personal site, and one on the skincare site. So both have sort of overlapping some very different things if you look at both. And skincare, wellness, I have some stuff on Maui, a little bit about the Hawaiian Healing experiences. And so, yeah, it's a bunch of the things that have just inspired me. I actually think the blog is just called Inspiration on my
Well, that's the best.
Skincare.
I think it's wonderful, and I really would. Now you inspired me to try guava on my face. I'm going to go pick some guava and just 15 minutes on my face and see what happens.
That's it. Wash it off. It's a brightening agent. It's a protecting agent. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Well, I thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and time with us here, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Cindy. It was so nice talking to you, too, and I look forward to seeing you on Maui.
Aloha.
Aloha.